best way to share. So yeah, thanks for the invite. And already an interesting opening remarks, right? So I'm going to follow up on some of them. And also, I think last year also talked and then also talked about Solid and the HDA. So happy to take questions and to explain you what the progress is. Now, just to give you an example, in fact, this is a screenshot that I've taken. This is a patient I helped. There's a lot of background noise for someone. Sorry, please mute. Maybe it's David.
Well, that's my bad. It's okay.
Yeah, okay. So what you see is here is all the files that I downloaded for a patient that I was helping. And again, it's downloading, it is documents, it is not structured data. And I'm going to come back on that because the problem is that for a patient, and you said it rightly in the beginning, right? So Karina, you said it, we need all stakeholders on board. But who's the first stakeholder for me is the patient. We always say patient-centric, patient first, but who from all of these projects really does it, right? And so we start with Fakir, our company, with the patient first. And so from, in fact, when you're born till you die, you have all of these data sets, all of these databases, and it's not even data sets and databases, it's mostly documents, unstructured documents. How do you bring it together? Because you need to know where to find them, the F of Fakir, to access them. How can I download them? Can I download them? Interoperable, how do you bring 350 documents together in a meaningful way? Do I have to read all my blood tests, or can I see how my creatinine is evolving, or my hematocrites, or other values? It's very, very tough. So stress levels goes up, and imagine even that when people are traveling, how tough it is to get to the data. Because you see, typically when you're a healthy person, you don't have that much, and maybe you don't care that much, right? But we focus now very much on chronic diseases and also on rare diseases. And in Belgium, 10, 11 million inhabitants, there's 500,000 people with rare diseases, and 1 out of 10 has, for instance, diabetes. That's already 1.5 million, 15% of the community, right? And so don't underestimate these patients with chronic disease and rare disease. They're smart, they know what they're doing, and they're super engaged, right? And we see this because we're live. So last year it's a presentation, it's PowerPoint, but we're live. Patients are using our solution. And maybe Karina, to answer some of the questions that you got, is by going live with hemophilia, all of these patients, 100%, we don't have that much yet, right? We're not at the thousands, but all of the patients want to share the data with pharma, with Roche to get better drugs, but none of them, and really none of them want to share with the government. So the trust in government is much, much lower than it is into pharma. And this is real life, right? So we're working again with Koning Boudewijn Stichting, which is a foundation in Belgium, who did research on the Belgian level on the trust. It was similar, but the percentage was not that high. And maybe next year we will do this research again because they want to work with us to see how can we not only make patients more literate, also more aware, but also more tech savvy to use it. But trust me, last Sunday, I was talking to a group of 50 people. It was a patient organization, so 3 physicians, all patients, and there were 24 patients, 16 patients lined up, and all of them understood what I was talking about. So don't underestimate, we think people are stupid. Well, they're not that stupid, okay? So then the problem, as I said, it's data silos. That's why Fakir interoperability is so important. You have data in your first line with your physician, then maybe you're in hospital 1, you're in hospital 2, that's here. Maybe you have some lab tests, you have maybe some apps, diabetes, weight scales, maybe your sleep, whatever. Diabetes centers, think about glucose meters. So good luck on bringing it all together in a meaningful way. Okay, so this is all in separate data silos, and typically it's even separate documents. It's document stores. It's not even data. So in Belgium, I think we're leading in many ways, Didier, and we saw each other also some days ago on the Flemish government. And Inge will talk about the HDA. So I think the Flemish and the Belgian politician, but also like the Brussels and Walloon, there's a lot of willingness to engage with the politicians. Also, we've set up the HDA. It took us, the Health Data Agency took us 11 months to write the law and to get it launched in Parliament, voted. We have the budget for that, and now it starts to scale little by little, right? But also in Belgium, we have not a data space, but a data hub. So that means like all your vaccinations are in one place safe. It's by the Flemish government, and then you can log in and see the data. We have a system in Flanders. It's not yet in Wallonie and elsewhere, which is COSO, where in fact, if you're in the Flemish region, you log on and you have one platform where all the hospitals have to, it's not legally bound, have to publish their papers. So I can log in and I can see my papers of different hospitals. And typically in Flanders, we have like 6 different EPDs, which makes it very tough. And then you have similar things like Réseau Santé Wallon and all the stuff to bring it together. But even when I have, so Brussels, I didn't come Didier because I have the flu, so I don't want to infect you guys, and I had a little bit fever, sorry for that. And maybe I'll sound a little bit nasal, I might cough, but anyhow. But the point is, if I would go to Brussels and have an accident, and I get in a hospital, you know, it happened to people that I know because I live very, very close by, and I visit Brussels often. Well, even my last blood test, my last allergies, all of the information is in COSO Flemish, and even just 5 kilometers from here, they cannot see it. So what they do a new blood test, they do a new picture, they do a new NMR. And that's also very cost consuming, right? So these things are not working, and data can do a lot. So I talked about the first stakeholder, the patient, here on top. But there's another important stakeholder. So there's a lot of things now, and we already have a Flemish and a Walloon government. We're still working on the federal government after the elections. Shame on the politicians to be so slow and to be so narcissistic and egoistic. But anyhow, don't quote me in its record. Sorry, politicians, but I mean it. But the point here is that there's a lot of pressure on people in health. And this is like, I talk to many physicians and many patients. And in fact, what I listened to here, this is literally screenshots from a physician in the emergency room. And he said, when a patient comes in that's not known by our hospital and has a potential heart infarct, it takes me 20 minutes and sometimes 80 minutes to go in all of these systems, all of these silos, I said, read the documents to get to the data. And you know, when you book travels, when you pay a ticket, we're in a hyper connected, hyper digital, hyper fast world, but our health is kind of still in documents and slow. So this is kind of what we try to do, is to really bring this all together in a way that you don't have these screens, because this is literally the screenshot of an EPD of a physician in the ER. So imagine you have to look at all the documents this way. This is the SUM-EHR. It's in Flanders. It's a way of the first line, the physicians at home, who need to fill it in. But you see, the systems are old, are not user-friendly. So I think to fill in one of these patient documents, a physician gets 40 or 60 euros, but nobody uses it. It's a waste of money. Why? User experience. It's not connected. It's not user-friendly. Here also you see kind of old lab tests, but you have to click one-on-one, read them, download them. So it's hell, sorry to say so. So also for the second stakeholder, for us, it is really tough to get all of the data. And then there's the third/fourth stakeholder, and I say researchers, and that can be academic, but also pharma. But I've worked in pharma 12 years. I founded a startup also after 12 years. So from 2000 to 2012, I worked for Eli Lilly as a data scientist, bioinformatician, but then also in clinical, bringing all data together for pharma, for making better drugs. And then I had a startup in data science, bringing it together because I found pharma was way too slow. So I founded my company on my own to do this much faster, because the problem is, if you need a registry in Belgium, on average, if you're lucky, you get it in 6 months, but typically it takes 18 months to 3 years. It costs you 500 to 1 million. So not having the data, you know, if you are going to die, you want it earlier, right? And also, what's the economic impact of not having the data? What's the economic impact that it's so costful? While strangely enough, we have the data in the hospitals, We have the data on the pharmacists. We have the data in insurances. So why can't we share it? So that's a problem. And then, of course, and I'm a huge fan of the European health data spaces because at last there's legislation. The only thing I often say in the US, they innovate, they create. In China, they duplicate. And in Europe, we regulate. And so we need to find a balance on not over-regulating and making things happen. As Didier, you did it in your introduction, right? Is why does translation cost 6 months or 5 months? Why does it take so long? And when it will be live in 2026, well, if you're sick and you're going to die in 3 months, well, I tell your kid, we'll have a low in 2 years to help you. You see, balance things. But the cool thing is that this data space, it is happening. And a data space is in fact a virtual network with technical rules, but also ethical rules and legal rules, and then also business rules. People forget it. And we're happy in Flanders. So I really love to be in Flanders. And I'm also happy to be European because I think we're doing the right thing. So legislation is needed, but balance it. Don't over legalize things. But the point is that in Flanders with IMEC, we have a great, IMEC is really a top research center. We work together and we have already a data space working. It's in a sandbox. And so it's pretty cool to see with all the aspects, right? So you have a broker, where is the data? Where can I find it? You have a clearinghouse. It's like the notary. This is like the bibliothèque. Where's the data? Then the notary. Yes, I stamp it. You can get access. Then you have a vocabulary. Do we talk the same language? You have an identity provider. That's kind of the police. Hans, are you Hans? Are you certified? And you have the App Store with all the applications. And then you have the data user, the questionnaire, typically a researcher. And then you have a provider. But guess what? Now we call it a lot prosumers. Because I, as a patient, want to know if my drug is the right one. I want to get a better drug. I want to be in preventive care, know earlier that I get sick and not when it's too late. So we're prosumers of data. And the data is ours. It's the patient's, right? It's not in the law like that. Data ownership is tricky, right? But, I want to share my data if it's done correctly. I think all the patients do. And so I'm also a tech geek. I'm very proud because I've written the first software of my first startup. So this is already my sixth startup. So from the introduction, I'm a tech entrepreneur, but I worked in pharma 12 years. I worked even a year and a half for the government. Guess what? But I get most fun of just being my own boss, having a great team, and being able to move fast and deliver things. So that's why I'm a tech entrepreneur. What we do now with the new company Fakir, it's about connecting the dots, but to connect the dots, to make it all very coherent, interoperable, you first need to collect the dots. And now I'm going to switch to the second part, which is solid, social link data. And this is not something I invented. I was lucky already in 2009 to have met Tim Berners-Lee several times. And we talked about it. And we're lucky because Ruben Verborg, who's a major professor, lives in Ghent, Belgium. And he's probably going to be the director of this. He already is in a certain way. But Tim Berners-Lee said the internet, it is a web of documents, right, with links. But it should be a web of data and interoperable data. And this is where Solid is. It's like not a new web, but it's an addendum to the web to move from strings to things, to really make linked data. And the cool thing is now, data is locked, right? So as I explained, data is locked. And just to explain you Solid is in fact a protocol. It's a World Wide Web Consortium protocol that's open source, open access. You can read it, you can install the app, and you can make your own pod, your personal online data store, your own little database. And you can do it on your phone, you can do it on your Google Drive, forever. It is platform agnostic, and you can use it with Chrome browser, with Safari browser, whatever. It is really open source to be used. But now, why is it solid? It starts with social media, where you say, I put my picture on Facebook, on LinkedIn, you copy your picture, you don't know what's happening. The idea is to really make a health data vault your database, and you say, I have a picture, and I share it. I give access to Facebook, I give access to LinkedIn, and I can revoke access. Now, solid social link data, we're moving this into the health sphere. when we say you have in hospital 1 and 2 data, in app 1, 2, your watch, some registry, some other data, some lab tests, and now we say, no, we take control of our data. And it's not that I want to own the data, but we do it in a federated way. So we keep the data where it is, but we connect it. And now the patient knows and finds all the data, hopefully also knows what happens with it. If the hospital, you can say, it is my data and I give access or not to certain physicians and so on. But you get, and I heard it in the first talk, control of your data. You see where your data is, you have control of your data, which is pretty cool. So of course, there's a lot of tech because this is kind of what it is now. It's documents. So what we do is we look at, for instance, the erythrocytes, but we don't take the erythrocytin as the Dutch name. We translate it into data with the right international codes, SNOMED, LOINC, ICD-9, you can name them, because then erythrocytin is the Dutch label of the right code. And then Italian can read it, the Spanish, even Vietnamese can read it. So structure your data and also think about UX UI. So we have an app where you then can see all your data and you see it's kind of, we call it the dunes, but you can then stretch it in and out. And when you're in a hospital, you have more things and then more things. And then here you're a little bit disabled. So you can show this in a nice visual. And then when you click, you get to the right documents, to the right data, but everything is connecting nicely visualized. And then you can also say, I share all my health data with my physician, but not my psychology reports. Or I share it with my wife, but then maybe after 3 years when you divorce, you can revoke access. So this personal data vault is in fact, and I'll put a link to a video into the chat. It is privacy by design. You can use it. So we use international standards so that it's not anymore a document, but it's real data that everybody can read. It's not just the Dutch, you see. And the cool thing is when you do this the right way, sometimes you have a rare cancer. Well, you can go up and down in the tree. You find much more related data and much more information because now it is data and it's not a stupid document. Even with physicians, right? A physician is not anymore active. Who's a physician in Belgium? We have codes, RISIF codes, INAMI codes. Didier will know this, but then this changes. So it's impossible to find who's the expert for my disease. Where's my diabetes coach? And so on and so on. So we link all of the data. We use OpenR. We use HL7 Fire and all of that to really make data truly interoperable. Now, that's one thing with the typical existing medical data. But guess what? How many days are you in the hospital? And how many days are you at home? There's a lot of data at home. So typically now people look into data of the medical records, the clinical records only, or maybe some health records. But guess what? We want to move beyond that and add a personal health record. So link to your personal data. So in our use case with hemophilia, and Roche having a great drug, Hemlibra, they need to prove to the Belgian government what's the value, what's the right price of the drug to get reimbursed. So they need to know the data. Well, now they have to wait for the EHRs and EMRs to give them some data. These patients sometimes show up once a year. They only know the last month. So the data is skewed. They have to wait for the data. It's a lot of consultancy in between, so it costs them a lot of data. And what we have done now for the hemophilia patients, we have set up a pot. We integrate that data, and I'll show it later how it looks like. And now Roche, with the right way to get access to anonymized and in fact pseudonymized data, they have the data always on, always available. So the cool thing I said, for us, the EHDS in Europe, and you've read it in the beginning, Didier, is the individual in control of that data, right? Give access to the data in an interoperable way. So that's one thing. And secondly, I think the solid technology, I'm happy in Flanders, we were the first region in the world where the minister president himself took the faith in this, put some money in it, and we're starting to do this. And the aim is by the end of the year, that will take maybe 2 years, that all Flemish citizens will have a pot supported by the government, and then we will start to add in data. On top of that, we're happy with Fakir. We just started. In fact, we had only 1 employee till last year, and Philippe and I, my co-founder, were only there, so it's only 3 people. We started coding in February, but we're live in June, and we have a new release in October now. And we already have a grant of 2.5 million, so that's 10 researchers in all of these companies with IMEC that are paid for the coming 2 years to do the research. Now, one step back here is, how does it work, the ecosystem? So first, you can use a Fakir pod, or you can go to Solid and install it wherever you want. It's your database, it's your pod, right? You can also take the Flemish pod, the Belgian pod, the European pod, whatever. We'll see. There will be plenty. So you have an empty, safe space. And it's GDPR by definition, because it's your data in your vault that you give access or not. So you don't have to control people anymore, because it is in the control by definition. Watch the video that I will send you to understand it. The second step is, if there's already applications, we connect it. If there's EPDs, we connect it. If there's a new application needed, we build it and we connect it. So you start to fill the pot. So step one is, I, as a patient, I have my data. I can see my data for me. It is closed only for me. Second step is, a physician has also a pod, and then you want to make your data available for your health. It's primary use of your data. And so the physician gets access, or all physicians or all hospitals can get access, and then you share your health information as you do, but you know when it's touchable because it's a federated network. And then step three is really sharing it with, this is secondary use. And then we make an aggregator pod, which comes with technical rules. It's like a mini data space. And in there's rules, and then the pharma can use it, but it's anonymized data. And then the patients say we contribute or we don't contribute. And it is working, right? We have proof now. And lastly, we connect, but this arrow should go there. We connect with the Flemish data space, which is sandboxed, so that it can go beyond just an aggregator pod, that it can go beyond that, and it can really be in a data space with a data catalog and all of these things on top of it. So this is very quickly, it's a huge architecture. It's a lot of work, but we already have it live. We already have patients. We already have hospitals using. We already have secondary use from pharma, and it is working, right? So we have apps for you as a patient, for a professional, and the hospitals like it. In the beginning said, Hans, you're going to steal our data. I said, no, it's not your data. You need to share data. We're enriching your data with the data at home. So now the hospitals even want to pay us, because when a new patient comes in, or an existing patient, they have the Strava connected, they have the sleep models, they don't need to ask it. So we're bringing efficiency to the system. So it's pretty cool now, because it's really scaling. And of course, for me, I'm a data geek, but also I'm very much into UX, UI, user experience. So it is available on the App Store and the Google Store, but you won't be able to download it because it's still under the radar. Because I don't want to do PowerPoints. I don't want to talk. I want patients who use it, and I want to prove it, and I want to see the impact. I want to sit close to the patients and close to the physician, because then I know that it works. And so now you see that patients can monitor their bleeding every day when they have it. A quick picture, that did it have pain? Is it bruised? Is it getting bigger? They manage also their treatment schemes, their medication schemes, and then they see in fact values, and they share this with the researchers and with the hospitals. And you already see that it will accelerate research, as the EHDS wants to do. A second use case on diabetes, where people say, how did you move? You can do it manual. You connect it to Strava, to a Garmin watch. How many cigarettes did you smoke? We can ask a question, or you can put it in. You can connect to a weight scale, and then we have kind of these values to see kind of where are you this week, and how does it relate to your health and your blood and so on. And for the pharma, secondary use, and policymakers, we have dashboards that they can easily see how many people that are overweight are male, female, how old are they, and so on. It's all anonymized data, and then they can see these fantastic things. So Fakir, fair, accessible, interoperable, reusable, FAR with the quality in the center. And we've chosen Fakir as a name because we want patients to be zen on their data. It's like a Fakir sitting on the bed of nails, the ones and the zeros. But it's all about linking data. It's about bringing it all together with a knowledge graph, and I can talk about tech if needed. But it's like when people want to surf, and they want to surf and use Safari or Chrome, they don't want to understand FTTP or HTTP. Solid is like the HTTP of surfing. So we're sitting with patients. It is extremely safe. We have audits, we have reporting. It is simple, and you're back in control of your data. So we have it up and running. It is starting to scale in Belgium. We might go to new countries next year, but we first want to service like 1 million diabetes patients in Belgium and 500,000 rare diseases. There's also other use cases. And then we're going to start to scale beyond Flanders and Belgium. So there's a lot of people helping us, a lot of patients, way too many names, but you see it's the Belgian Diabetes Forum, the hemophilia movement in Belgium. And then we have IMEC, our Fakir people, and the Flemish government is also supporting us. So this is my story, and happy to take questions.